Hey, how's it going everyone? Welcome to another Skyrim video. I'm Alex, and in today's video I'll be showing you some of the mods that you absolutely need to try if you want to make Skyrim into a more of a hardcore RPG, something that might resemble Dark Souls a little bit. And this is by no means the ultimate full mod list of all the mods that I'm using. That will take like 10 hours to properly explain. I have well over 600 mods, but basically I went through my list and selected some of the most important ones that I think you definitely need to try. So if you want to make Skyrim a lot more creepier and harder, then this video is for you. Everything that I mentioned will be in the description below. And if you never modded Skyrim, there's a video that will teach you how to do that, as well as another video that will show you how to optimize the game and gain a lot more performance. So make sure you check all of that out, and let's get started. Alright, so I'm going to structure this video in a very simple to understand way. We'll talk a little bit about must-have mods, something that you should always have installed, regardless of whatever else you're doing. Then we'll talk a little bit about visuals, audio, crafting, perks, magic, combat, enemies, some immersive stuff that we are going to need because our game is going to be very dark. So I'm just gonna segment all of that, and we are going to start with some must-have mods. But I would also like to let you know that if you're just starting with modding Skyrim, then be very conservative with the mods that you're installing, because the more mods you install, the harder it becomes to manage them, and there's bound to be some conflicts, issues, crashes, all that stuff. So be very conservative. Always ask yourself if you really need a certain mod or not. I mean, I had over 1,000 mods initially, and I managed to cut off like half of them at least. And most of my mods, like 150 to 200 mods, are simple improvements and fixes. So be very conservative and your game will be playing much better. Alright, so some of the must-have mods are basically Unofficial Skyrim Special Edition patch. This will fix up a lot of the issues with the game, like gameplay issues. And then we also have SSE engine fixes. This will improve the engine of the game, fix up a lot of different types of issues. So those two mods are definitely a must-have. Then after that we have SkyUI, which is the best UI mod of all time. And this one will also provide MCM menu capabilities. Those are basically the menus that other mods will display in the game, so you can configure them. So you definitely need to have SkyUI. So those three mods, Unofficial Patch, SSE Engine Fixes, and SkyUI, are the must-have mods that you should be running at all times. Now, speaking of visuals and audio, we can start with audio because there's only a couple of mods there that I can recommend. First, we have Unofficial High Definition Audio Project. And what this does, it basically takes the audio from the consoles and ports it to PC, so you get high quality audio, and there is a big difference, especially if you're using headphones like me. But after that we have Audio Overhaul, and this is basically a little bit different. It adds some different effects, it fixes up some stuff, it basically makes the game's audio a lot better, and it's compatible with the first one. So you would first install this one, and then you would install the Audio Overhaul. And after that we have a small mod that's called Bow Before the Dead, and since Skyrim is full of Draugrs, this mod will basically make them sound a lot more menacing and dangerous, which will be important later on when we overhaul the game in terms of visuals. And then finally, the last audio mod that I can recommend is Softer Conjuration sound. If you like playing with summons like a mage, then you should definitely get this one, because the vanilla sound is kind of annoying and this one is much better. So that's it for the audios. Now let's move on to the visuals. So when it comes to visuals, we have textures, we have weathers and lighting, all of that stuff. So we're gonna start with textures. Now for textures, I can recommend Noble Skyrim. This is a phenomenal mod that will basically retexture the whole game, and it might change the art style a little bit. I personally love it. I think it's awesome. So if you don't like the art style, then just don't use it, but I think it's pretty great, probably the best one out there. It also has landscape textures, so you don't have to use any other ones. And after Noble Skyrim, we also have, oh, and by the way, Noble Skyrim has a performance edition as well, so if your GPU has like 3 to 4 gigs of VRAM, then go with the performance edition, otherwise use the standard one. But also get static mesh improvements, SMIM. This mod will retexture all kinds of small objects in the game. It's compatible, doesn't matter which one you install first. There is a patch that will make them work together. And then finally we have Ruins Clutter improved. This will further retexture a lot of the stuff that you find in dungeons and ruins, so I would install that one last. So those three are pretty much the basics. You don't really need anything after that, but if you want to make the environment a little bit nicer as well, then you can get Majestic Mountains, and this one has a couple of different options. I like all of them. I think the dark side looks the best, but even the basic version looks pretty awesome as well. And after Majestic Mountains, we have Skyrim Flora Overhaul, which is basically anything to do with trees and flora, so get that one as well. Then you also want to get realistic water too, to make the water look much better. And then finally you want to get Total Character Makeover, which will improve the way that the characters look in the game, so we don't want to neglect that either. So that's it for the textures. Now let's move on to some other types of visual mods. So textures are basically just one part of Overhaul in Skyrim. The other part is basically weathers and lighting. This is just as important, if not even more. This is what will give you ambience and atmosphere in the game. So for that I can recommend Vivid Weathers Definitive Edition. This will improve all the weathers in the game. It also comes with custom shaders that you can pick. I use the classic one, so don't forget to enable the extra plugin in Mod Organizer if that's what you're using. And other than that, Vivid Weathers will make your game look a lot more bleaker and darker and more intense. And I would also suggest that in addition to Vivid Weathers, you also install True Storms, and you do need a patch to make them work together. But basically True Storms will take the storms in the game and make them even more intense, so the game will be quite unrecognizable both in terms of visuals and audio. Now, to take this a step further, we need a mod that's called Enhanced Lights and Effects, and this is a phenomenal mod, probably one of my favorites. This one it has modules that deal with the exteriors as well, but this is mostly for interiors, but you will see different options while you're installing it, so I suggest that you go with all of them. And this mod comes with 3 different options. You have the basic version, which simply improves things a little bit, but you also have the enhancer version, which will darken the interiors, and I think it looks phenomenal. It really adds to the atmosphere of the game. And then you have the hardcore version, which is the one that I'm using. It's the same as enhancer, but it basically makes uninhabited areas and dungeons like pitch black, so if there's no light sources, it's going to be very dark and you will need a light source of your own, which I think is great if you're playing like a super difficult version of Skyrim and everything is like atmospheric and creepy. That's the perfect version of the mod to use. So now that we have all of that taken care of, I'm going to show you some mods that will help us with the light sources, because otherwise we'll not be able to do much in dungeons and ruins. Now when it comes to getting a light source, there's a couple of different things that you can do. I have 3 different options here. So the first one is called Wearable Lanterns. You can wear a lantern on your character. You have an MCM menu. You can configure everything, brightness, radius, where it appears on your character, all kinds of different stuff. It's very easy to get it. You can buy it from NPCs or just craft it yourself. Then you also want to get Wearable Lanterns MCM Menu Fix, so the text is actually readable. And this is what I use most of the time, Wearable Lanterns, because I kind of like that the light is warm and the brightness and radius, I'm using the max settings, so that's pretty cool. But sometimes I might actually use CandleLight or MageLight, and for that I can recommend Enhanced CandleLight and MageLight, which will decrease the cost of the spells, make them much stronger, brighter, and the radius will be increased. They will last longer, so basically make them how they should have been in vanilla Skyrim. And then I also have a mod that's called CandleLight MageLight No Ugly Glow Effects, and this will simply remove that weird blue aura, so if it bothers you, you can get rid of it. Now this one is for Skyrim Legendary Edition, but it works on Special Edition as well, so make sure you get both of them. Now finally we also have a mod that's called Simply Better Torches, and I don't really use torches in dungeons because I like having both hands available, but this applies to NPCs as well, so that's why I'm using it. This makes torches basically way less, higher radius, increased brightness, makes them much more usable, and basically fixes them up. So if you want to play with a torch, you definitely need this mod. But even if you don't want to play with a torch, I would say install it, because it will affect all the other torches in the game, including the ones that you see in the dungeons. So that's pretty cool. So that's how I get my light sources in this dark version of Skyrim. Alright, so now it's time to add some magic mods, and I actually just did a video recently showcasing all kinds of different magic mods, so you should definitely check that out. But basically the basic setup would be Summer Mist enchantments of Skyrim, over 120 new enchantments plus some fixes to the vanilla ones, and the NPCs will have access to them as well, so make sure you get that also. And then similarly we have Apocalypse, Magic of Skyrim, bunch of new spells in the game, so if you want to play around with different types of spells, and a lot of them are pretty cool as well. Definitely get Apocalypse Magic of Skyrim. Now when it comes to crafting, we have two different mods here. We have complete alchemy and cooking overhaul, lots of new recipes, improvements, fixes. You have a MCM menu with many different types of settings for potions, poisons, like all of this stuff here. You can see there's so much that has been done. This has been ported from the Skyrim Legendary Edition finally. And then same thing here, we have complete crafting overhaul remastered, very popular. Completely fixes the crafting in the game, makes it relevant, and basically you need both of these. I would say they're definitely a must-have mod if you want to bother around with crafting. And even if you don't want to craft, a lot of the changes from these mods will affect the world of Skyrim, including potions and poisons and things like that. So that's it for magic and crafting. Now we're going to talk about some perk mods and quality of life improvements. So here we have the respec mod, and this is a pretty cool mod. It will simply allow you to use a potion and then respec your skill points, so you don't have to like worry about wasting skill points. You can always just get a potion. It does cost a little bit more, like 500 gold or something like that, or septims, however you want to call it. And basically the respec mod is something that I would definitely recommend you get, so especially because the next mod on our list is Ordinator, and this is a complete perk overhaul, and I did a video on this as well. And there's so many different types of builds that you can play here, and you will probably want to respec fairly often. I know that I'm respecing my perks like all the time, so you definitely want to get both of these. There are some optional plugins with Ordinator. I would suggest that you read through all of them. I do use a couple of them, but basically Ordinator, in my opinion, is the best perk overhaul mod for Skyrim. Now after that we also have something that's called Perks Unlinked, and this is not actually a mod. This is like a patcher that you use with Mod Organizer, and what it does is when you're done modding Skyrim and your perk skill trees are done, if you use any other mods, which I am, you can use this mod, well, the patcher, and basically unlink them. It completely copies the skill perks that you have in the game and makes a copy of them, makes a mod out of that, and then what it does, it removes the requirements. So let's say, for example, if you want to take this perk here but you don't have enough level, you won't be able to get it unless you have to get this one and then that one and then this one. Now what this does is simply unlinks them, so if you have a sufficiently leveled skill tree, then you can just go straight to this perk and you don't have to get any of these. And why is this important? Because with Ordinator you're gonna have so many different perks. There's like I don't even know how many perks per skill tree, so perks unlinked definitely helps with that. So that's it for the perks and the respec and the patcher. Now we can move on to the last section, which is combat and enemies. Okay, so when it comes to enemies, leveling, scaling, combat, I can recommend basically boil down things to 4 different mods here. The first one is High Level Enemies Redux. This is the new version of the old High Level Enemies mod, which I'm still using in my full build. And if you're just getting ready with modding Skyrim, make sure you get this one. So this will be the one that I'll link below. And what this does, it has a couple of different options. The first option will add a bunch of new enemies to the game. Once you hit level 10, you will start seeing them. And the second option does the same thing, but it also upscales enemies from the mod as well as vanilla ones and makes them follow your level. So this can really help when it comes to difficulty, and let's say you're level 50 or 60, you will no longer be seeing like level 1 enemies, level 2 enemies, things like that. Now there's also optional plugins for the Dawnguard and Dragonbone areas, so I would say get those as well. And there's a couple of different plugins that you can also read and take a look at to do with like resists and maximum resists and spell resistance, things like that. So I'm not gonna go through that, like raised ability caps. Basically, it will make, for example, illusion spells relevant at higher levels, because in vanilla Skyrim, once you like out-level enemies or they out-level you, those spells kind of become useless. So this one will raise their caps and allow you to keep casting them on high-level enemies, especially if you're using the scaled version of the mod, which I recommend. So high-level enemies Redux, second option, the best one in my opinion. Use all the optional plugins as well. And then after that we have the first combat mode, Wildcat Combat of Skyrim, probably the best combat mode out there. Comes with many different options, subsystems, such as attacks of opportunity, stamina costs, improved AI. So even if you don't want to use all the subsystems, it will still function as an improved AI combat mode. So make sure you get Wildcat if nothing else. And there's so many different things that it does. You have an MCM menu, you can change things, disable, enable how you see fit. So feel free to read through all of that. It's a very cool mod. Definitely one of my favorites. Now after Wildcat we have True Armor, and True Armor is also a phenomenal mod. And you don't have to worry about configuring it. There's an option to import different presets that the author has been kind enough to make for us. Now what it does, it basically makes all the armor in the game relevant in terms of the resistances, protection bonuses, has some different settings for blocking, for combat, regeneration stats, all of that stuff. Basically different types of armors will be doing different types of things. And I think that's how the game should have been, because instead of just having higher armor rating, they should also have different bonuses, protections, and things like that. So that's what True Armor does. Definitely a must-have combat mod in my opinion. Now, since True Armor kind of slows down the game a little bit by default, I would say if you install Wildcat, there's an optional plugin that will raise damage dealt and taken by 100%. So normally I wouldn't use that plugin, but since True Armor slows the game, like I said, then you might want to consider using that plugin as well if you want to keep the speed at vanilla levels. So that's it for the combat mods. There's actually one more combat mod, it's called Mortal Enemies. This is a smaller mod, it's not that big. And what it does, it basically edits the movements and removes the aimbot capabilities of creatures, so they will actually be able to miss you. And basically improves combat. Load up won't last, and you should be good to go. So that's it for the combat mods. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. As I said, all the links will be in the description below, and if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Take a look at the playlist. It's also in the description with all kinds of different mods showcased. And that's about it. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you around, guys.